What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Game Time Discussions. I'm Emmer Kez. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby. We're excited to get our live stream going for Week 7 of the NFL slate. Lots of games, lots of things are going on. There's actually a London game currently going on. I see Dustin is in the chat. Hey, Dustin, if you could update us on the score as it goes on. I know that they scored it when I last looked. It was 7-0, so we will see if that continues. But yeah, if you could update us, that'd be great. Looking at some of these games, we're going to talk to Cam, of course, but I want to recap the Thursday night game because it was just such a fun game for us DFS wise.
Right.
We did a very good breakdown on that game. That was very cool. Alvin Kamara was the only disappointment basically on the whole slate.
Yeah, and I mean, you had to play one Saint as an optimal line, and I believe um, Spencer Rattler ended up outscoring him all. So I think he was the guy that was optimal.
Right.
But I mean, he wasn't somebody that you could have avoided, um, in my eyes, and it just kind of got out of hand way too fast, and they just never really got anything going. So um, I'm not going to ever suggest playing Spencer Rattler and fade Alvin Kamara on a showdown slate. Is what it is. But all 5 of the lines that we broke down ended up cashing. We didn't play the same lines. We played a couple different. The only thing is we just didn't have the right one where, I brought up Cedric Wilson as a tournament play. He ended up only being 8% owned, which I thought was really, really low. He was in the optimal line as a part of the Saints receivers. Mason Tipton had 10 targets, and Bub Means, who I knew would be chalky, had a gut feeling to, maybe we should be underweight to him, but we ended up playing 2 lines, or I played 2 lines out of the 3 with him, and he ended up not working out well based on his ownership. And then also Devon Vele, he kind of crushed a ton of our underdog and prize pick slips because he had a 20-yard catch to start the game, and then at the very end he had 2 catches that would have put him over either one. Both of them got called back.
Yep.
So that was pretty unfortunate as well. But overall, a good night. It was a fun night for us for a relatively boring game if you're just a typical fan. But yeah, that was typically how I saw that game going down.
Yeah. And then, of course, Bo Nix did well. And on his rushing props were insanely low compared to what he went for. And then the Denver defense, man. We love defense, man.
They have been absolutely slept on this year. They're not really getting enough credit, but that is their 5th out of 6 games with fantasy points over 10 points. Don't have numbers in front of me, but they've been killing it in terms of turnovers, sacks, production. Cody Barton could have had 4 turnovers last night.
And 2 touchdowns.
He had a strip sack for a touchdown that was called back. He had a drop pick. He did recover a fumble. And then at the very end, he did get his strip sack touchdown. So he was all over the field. It was pretty fun to watch him.
Yep. But let's look at our picks. We're doing our 2024 DFS sheet. Our pick sheet. It's week 7. Last week, I can recap real quick. We've had, just a couple games wrong. 11-3. Though. I know.
Bowen and
both
Mike
of them.
Clay going 14-0, 13-1 respectively. They have absolutely been running away from, especially me. You're trying to keep up a little bit. And then this morning, it already feels like I'm about to go 0-3 on my London picks because I missed the first 2 over the last couple of weeks, and then obviously Jacksonville is trailing, and I guess New England is on their side of the field now.
Yep.
So yeah, rough going across the pond for me this year.
Oh yeah, everybody had Jacksonville winning this game except for Bowen. He's just gonna get it right again. Why not? Clay missed on New Orleans, but yeah, I'm the only one that picked Seattle out of all the in the Seattle Falcons game. It's a 3-point game in Seattle or in Atlanta, but I just feel like, they're going to split and you have to pick one. So this is where I'm going.
Right. And I don't feel entirely confident to just hammer Atlanta.
Right.
I know we do like some Atlanta players. RotoWire loves Drake London today, for the record. Kenneth Walker, it's his birthday today, but he also might miss because he's sick. Whether you want to tie that towards some conspiracy or not remains to be seen. But that's one of the true GTD starting at 12 o'clock that we're going to be keeping an eye on, because if Zach Charbonnet is able to play at only 5,300, we are one to put him in many lines compared to
right. Absolutely.
If not,
things will change throughout the stream if that does happen.
Right.
Everybody on Buffalo, everybody on Cincinnati. The next one that is different, me and Cam both picked Houston to beat Green Bay. Everybody else has Green Bay. It's in Green Bay. I get that. I just think 3 points is I think it's at 3. Yeah, -3 for Green Bay right now. Um, I don't necessarily love either side, and I think taking the dog here was that's why I picked the dog.
Yeah, with them, I just think these two teams are really close. I think Houston kind of
Mm,
I prefer their roster. And on top of that, being in Green Bay, you know, starting to get into the time where weather becomes a factor, and maybe for non-cold weather teams, that's like a even bigger of a disadvantage being on the road. But there's not really any weather concerns today for the most part, especially from a rain perspective. So that's just one of those games. The only one with weather, and I know we usually break these down after picks, is Bills Titans,
right.
and it's for wind gusts. So if you have kickers, probably don't play those kickers. You probably didn't have them anyway, especially after this past Monday night um, when he missed a very, very bad extra point
Yeah.
and another field goal as well. And then, I don't think anybody's really a deep threat. The only thing of note is Amari Cooper's making his Bills debut today. So if you like their props and stuff like that, just kind of be a little wary of that one.
Yep. And then going to the next one, Indy. I was surprised someone picked Miami, but we have one Miami pick. Detroit, basically across the board, except for I think it's Pete Prisco. Yeah, Pete Prisco. He likes doing stuff differently.
But they're undefeated
yeah,
at home.
they're
And they're
solid.
favored. So I'm actually surprised there wasn't another person take a chance on Detroit, but they're just kind of rolling right now.
Yeah.
And they're 1-2 in our power rankings when we did the October version of it. So that'll be a very, very fun one to
Mhm.
watch today. We'll be targeting that game a lot.
And then Philly 5, and then Pete Prisco.
I mean,
There's
I
a
wouldn't be
trend.
shocked. I mean, the last time we saw these two teams play, the Giants ran away with this
Yeah.
game, and that was in the final week of the season to allow Dallas to clinch the division. Basically, the Giants are the reason that Philly and Dallas have both been suffering
Yeah.
since. And it's also a Saquon revenge game if you wanted to paint narratives and stuff like that. So a lot of fun stuff with that one.
The Rams fully across the board, Washington all the way across the board against the Panthers. Then you have KC in 4 out of the 6. We both picked KC. They're actually the dogs in this game, going to San Francisco and not having any main alpha receivers. I guess Juju is our preferred play today, but they don't necessarily have anybody that you're like really comfortable with.
If I remember correctly, this is the 14th game of Patrick Mahomes' career that he is a dog, and he is 11-1-1 against the spread in games that he's a dog. So obviously, a lot of people are siding with him today. They're coming off a bye. San Fran's coming off a extra 3-day rest because they played Thursday night football.
Mm-hmm.
Their one of note was CMC. His practice window was able to be lifted. He's still not playing. But Jordan Mason, who left the game last week and made all of us DFSers upset, he is actually in today.
Gotcha. New York Jets fully across the board playing against the Steelers, who are now starting Russell Wilson. Very weird situation there.
I hate that game tonight.
It's gross for sure. And then tomorrow's games, we have the Ravens versus the Bucks at the Bucks. I actually went Tampa Bay. I'm with Pete Prisco, weirdly enough. And then in the next game, Cam is Pete Prisco, going with the only Arizona pick out of everybody.
Yeah, with that one, I mean, the Chargers are kind of banged up at receiver. I don't know how much that matters. They are a 1-point favorite, but I was looking at their schedule kind of going forward, and I'm just like, they have, an at Arizona, a home against New Orleans, and at Cleveland. And I just have a feeling they're not going to win all 3 of those games. And I think Arizona is the most likely one to steal one at this point, the way that those teams are playing.
Fair enough. And then looking at our spread picks, I basically went all the dogs that I picked. I mean, I
That's kind of what I did. The spreads aren't great this week. There's like 2 that are over touchdown favorites, and we've seen time and time again how well those are. But I don't have confidence in saying Tennessee plus 9.5.
Right.
There's a Carolina plus 10. You can sneak in, but Washington's actually been one good about over the last few weeks blowing out teams. Like they beat
Cincinnati.
Cleveland by 21 and Arizona by 28. So it's just tough to get to. So basically, if you're picking dogs, pick those spreads. That's kind of what we did for the most part.
Yeah. It looks like you have a 1 favorite here. We had the Denver favorites. We both went for 7 points in that game. We thought Denver was better. And then also Taysom Hill got rolled out post our production when we made it. So Denver made so much sense, and they won by 23. So
right.
Going to the DraftKings slate. Let me switch it over. We're going to start with our early only. kind of get through talking some of these guys. Let me pull my stuff up over here though. Yeah, I didn't miss anything. Oh, weather concerns. You said Tennessee,
Yeah, there's
Buffalo.
really
That's why.
nothing today.
Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah, yeah.
clear cut today. 10-game slate for the main. Um, did you click? I'm sorry. Did you click on early only? Or
It's
okay,
early only.
okay.
Yeah,
Just want to make sure. I was blanking for a
yeah,
second,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah. So this one is actually a 7-gamer. Pretty self-explanatory. The problem is there's just a huge lack of value right now. Across the board, a lot of the running back injuries that we saw coming in, they are actually in for the most part. The one thing was a late pop-up because we actually did like a Kenneth Walker prop, and we were talking about him a little bit in the early only. Well, him questionable on his birthday with hungoveritis or whatever he has.
Mm-hmm.
If he is ruled out, we saw it in 2-game sample size. Was Zach Charbonnet did. One game was inefficient, the other game was pretty very solid, but both games really returned value, and he's only 53 now.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he's the clear chalk, but late in the game chalk. So that's something an hour from now we're really gonna have to keep an eye on. And it could very well be something where it's a little bit of a split, or
Right,
just
for
Kenneth
sure.
Walker, it was smoke and he just kind of runs away with it. But really hard to get to a lot of value elsewhere. The main game we want to talk about is Detroit and Minnesota.
Let me
The
go get
highest
it.
total on this slate, because Washington and Carolina is in the afternoon.
Yeah, right, right.
This one had all kinds of fireworks last year with backup quarterbacks, and this time the starting quarterbacks are playing. So it'll be a fun one. Should be fireworks. The only thing is Detroit has actually been a little bit underwhelming, being a recent highest total game.
Yeah,
And maybe the production from a fantasy perspective is there, but we saw like an Arizona game where it was like 52 and ended up being 20 to
20.
13.
Yeah,
And a couple games like that as examples. So but a lot of people in the player pool today, the only thing is the running, if you're talking about this game just fantasy wise, the running back position is really not a great matchup for both sides of this game. I mean, obviously, Minnesota is top 3 against the run, and then Detroit on the other side, I believe, is right there.
yeah.
If it weren't for a Kenneth Walker, 3-touchdown game, they were number 1 against running backs last year. So really hard to trust going up 64 plus, because Aaron Jones is in today. Could be
Mm-hmm.
limited as well with the groin/hammy, and or he's 65 rather. But then David Montgomery has been at least over 15, but he's been every game. So a lot of it is like 12, 13, 14 carries. But it depends on kind of game script and how you view this game turning out.
Yeah. Dustin gave us a quick update. Patriots are up 10-0. Apparently, they got that field goal after getting into plus territory. That game is probably pretty interesting, actually, considering everybody's on Jacksonville, and then no one, and then of
Right.
course the Patriots go and.
I mean, the one thing I was noting, I said, in the tweet yesterday that waiting on reminder news, and if you were looking for that start sit, but then also Travis Etienne officially getting ruled out, since we got IR spots, being able to maneuver those to IR and get some extra guys, because you should always be doing those manipulations, because you never know when those injuries will happen. So that was something else that I was personally looking on. So,
right. What for this game though? Sorry, going back to the Lions. There are a few pass catchers that we have to talk about. Amon-Ra St. Brown is of course in high total game, and a game we want to target because number 1 versus 2 type of fireworks. You want to watch it. Amon-Ra is the best receiver on the Detroit Lions. He's going to, if he can find a boom game this year, that's the problem. He hasn't had those games because he hasn't gone over 25 points, which is good, but on slates like this, you still probably need the 30-point games out of players
he had
like this.
that obviously 19 target outlier game against Tampa Bay, but really he hasn't had over 8 targets since. A lot of that's been because they've been playing from ahead and just not really targeting. I don't even know what happened week 1 when that went down, because that was a good matchup for him and they just didn't use him at all. And it wasn't at the expense of like a Sam Laporta. Really, Jameson Williams was the only pass catcher in that entire game that did anything, and he went over 100 yards and all that good stuff. But he scored in 3 straight games. Last year, we hyped up this week because Justin Jefferson is our top guy, killing it against Detroit throughout his career, especially recently. In those same games last year for Amon-Ra St. Brown, 12 for 106 in a score, 7 for 144 in a score. So he had his fair share of great game too. The problem is just getting up to both is
Yeah.
really tough when you have no value. So if you're just wanting to punt a zero, but you think both of these guys are just gonna have 30-point upside, I can't fault you for it. Especially, the really one way to get different in this slate is that all of the tight ends that we talked about, Kelsey, Kittle, and Bowers, really elite matchups for all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them are on this slate. So basically, we're plugging a lot of those guys in today. And, being able to go down without having to make a decision, like fading them, is something really fun that, is that's really the one place for value today.
Right. Special delivery. I appreciate Zoe for giving me a Dutch Bros drink. We are not sponsored by Dutch Bros. Please don't think we are. They're not affiliates.
Turn the ad.
Yeah, right. There's actually a complete screen here, if you can't tell, across this, and I can't get this damn thing open, which is awesome. It's not even doing it either. It's a sticker. What the hell, guys? But yeah, so I agree. Justin Jefferson, Amon Ra. You have to figure out how to get either both of them. If you can get both of them in your lineups, like, it's really fun and cool, but you have to find
we'll try
value
our best to do
otherwise.
it in a first look build, but it's going to be really, really tall task to do so.
Yeah, there's some other guys though I want to talk about on this. Oh my goodness gracious, on this Detroit team. You look at Jameson Williams. We talked about him. His price has come to 6,000, and we talked about him on our original breakdown. Necessarily have the
Finally.
Yeah, I know, right? He doesn't necessarily have the target share that you want to see for a guy that's 6,000. He does have the boom plays, of course. 70-yard bomb coming out against Seattle. Did Dallas? He had a 37-yarder, 50-yarder, 52-yarder earlier in the year. That's what he makes his money on, and I just can't, on a DFS slate, get comfortable picking a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's killed it from a season long perspective. If you started him, if you have best ball shares of him, obviously he's returned value on that. But just he's such a volatile guy because of those opportunities. But you see a game like Week 3 against Arizona in a great spot, in a good matchup. I talked about that game just a second ago. 1 catch on 3 targets, 9 yards. He just didn't have his 2 all-purpose yards because he had a reverse that went awry. But yeah, bad game, and it was in a good game script. So essentially, it's just kind of he's basically Xavier Worthy as well.
Right.
People don't really think about that, but he's gonna always get 4 to 5 looks. He might have the boom touchdown, but if he doesn't, it's really hard to trust him. 6,000. Even though it's a good spot, it's really tough to get to. I'm actually surprised that his ownership's not even higher for early on this slate.
Right.
But that's just kind of something worth noting.
Yeah, and then Tim Patrick, I want to mention him really quick because he has been pretty good. His touches this, I mean, he is his exact player as what we just talked about, Jameson Williams, on a last 2-week basis. Big play type of guy. Not expecting him to continue that, but if he can get 4 targets, 5 targets, and be more consistent in that way. We did pick his prop on one of our props. He was at 19.5 receiving yards.
It's all the way up to 23 now, so that was really good value.
Perfect.
when we punched that. He's one of the guys in 3,000 worth mentioning, and then also good game script. So
could be a stack, guy.
But also, if he is the one that goes for 1.2, just like Jameson Williams is, it's not the end of the world because you're basically paying your bottom dollar. If your value doesn't hit, as long as your other things are hidden, that's working out. But if you pay 6,000, you're not getting 12 points. I feel really nervous for those kinds of plays.
Yeah, Jameson Williams just had the touchdowns. Well, Tim Patrick hasn't had a touchdown in the last 2 weeks at least.
Today could be the day.
Yep. Let me grab the other side of this game because we are basically going to be playing this game on this slate. There's one other quarterback we can talk about that we talked about in the earlier week. That is Jordan Love. We'll get to him in a second, but this is the main game we're going to be getting to. We're going to be trying to find ways to get this game in as much as possible.
Right. One thing to note is TJ Hawkinson. We were hoping that for the revenge narrative, he could be returning this week. They're going to hold him out one more week, and so he will not be a thing. However, Josh Oliver and Johnny Munt have split being the punt touchdown guys.
Yeah.
1 week we nailed Josh Oliver at the very end. He had nothing, but he scored the touchdown. Johnny Munt, I think it was flipped. We had Johnny Munt.
Yeah.
Weeks ago. It was
and he had that.
When he had 1 catch, 2 yards,
and
a touchdown, that was the game. That was the game. And then the other one, Josh Oliver, obviously he is kind of upside where he has 4 catches in the year, but 2 weeks ago, 2 catches and a touchdown, but 3 games without anything since.
Yeah.
So, not really meaning anything from here. But one thing that I think is important is it's just another week for Addison to get healthy, because obviously he had Brandon camp, regulated it week 1, missed a couple weeks. Then the last 2 were just kind of getting back into it. So his last game having 8 targets was, a welcoming sight, especially being 89% of snap share. Um, but he's a guy that could really be in a solid spot today, especially if you're going to have a double with the Sam Darnold. Obviously, you're going to play Justin Jefferson. He's scored in every game except for this past one. His worst game, having 14 targets, is something I'm willing to play with. And again, I don't have to keep on reiterating how well he did last year with Nick Mullins against Detroit. So great spot for him. He's our top receiver play of the day.
Yep, he is also on our. He was on our draft, or I mean, our prize picks. Also, if you would have gotten him early in the week, he was at 84.5 receiving yards.
He went up to 93.
93 and a half. Yeah. We got him. I mean, in Discord, we did get a shout out for him at, I think he was at 85 and a half or something when we got that in there. But you have to be in Discord to get those early looks. Jalen Naylor's an option, but wait.
He was getting the set snaps, but he had no targets last week on 56% of the snaps, and he's still 45. So it's not like that's a dart throw I'm willing to go with, but you never know. Like, there's always these 1%ers that end up optimal. We saw Sean Tucker last week being 0.04% owned and being optimal because he had 192 all-purpose yards in a slate where Bucky Irvin was pretty chalky without Rashad White.
Yep. Jags touchdown, down 10-7.
Let's go.
We have a chance. I think it was to Brian Thomas Jr. So that's awesome. I am playing him this week in fantasy. That's great. But yeah, let's talk about the other guy on the slate in Green Bay. We do like the Houston side. Don't get us wrong, guys, but it's impossible to get to.
It really is. I mean, one thing of note is obviously Nico's still on IR, but Diggs is all the way to 77. Yeah. Tank Dell's to 65. I saw Roto Grinders shout out Tank Dell as one of the top plays of today, and it's just like, how are you getting to him though? It's tough, because especially if you're doing top plays, usually you want to do bringbacks in some way, shape, or form. And really the only play that I would consider today, just based on price, is maybe Joe Mixon if you don't have faith in a Kenneth Walker being healthy and playing, a Bijan because of his workload inconsistency, and then et cetera and so on. It's not a bad spot for him, but really Green Bay in the side is where the value is in this game. Dontavian Wicks has still not been ruled out, so he's a game time decision. And if he is ruled in, that just makes it even murkier. Yeah, not going to get to much of this game today, but it is worth noting that Houston does allow big plays, and Jordan Love coming off a 4-touchdown game this past week. That is 2 games out of his last 3 with 4 touchdowns. Obviously, he had 26 last game, 34 in week 4 playing catch up. And the 1 week we played him was in the middle where we were sad with 17. Yeah. So that's funny how that works always. But yeah, he's been playing well, under 7,000. Obviously, there's not a ton of quarterbacks to get to on this slate. If you want to do an unstack list, Josh Allen, cool. But he also hasn't been really doing great from a fantasy perspective as well. His rushing upside hasn't been there. Obviously, he scored 2 rushing touchdowns, I believe, this past Monday night. Yeah. But he's been under 200 yards passing for, I think, the majority of the season.
I think every game but one.
Yeah, every game but one. So really, this is the game this is the side of this game if you wanted to. Tucker Kraft, even though he had a dud last week, maybe that pulls his ownership down. But on an uncertain tight end slate, he had 2 touchdowns the week before. So, he's in play.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I really want Wicks out so that I can be comfortable picking guys in this game.
Right.
Romeo Dobbs having no production other than touchdowns last week. That because we didn't have him. Jaden Reed is the big play and our guy that they want. He went 6 for 6 for 28 yards. It was such a weird week last week, and I think it's going to mess up ownership for this team completely. So, hope if we do play some of them, which I will want to stack. Or not stack Jordan Love, but maybe get some of this game in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at early only ownership, and Jordan Love is 3% owned, and every single receiver is below 10%.
Yeah,
including Jaden Reed. So, really very tournament-esque build, especially crossing fingers on Dontavian Wicks. being out. But other than that, I mean, we can go through the rest of the quarterback slate, but there's just really nothing that stands out to us. I mean, um, like I said up top, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts has been okay.
Yeah.
Sure, if you wanted to get to him, obviously he's without Dallas Goedert today. CJ Stroud, a little rich for me today. Joe Burrow has honestly struggled throughout his career against Cleveland, and Cleveland has been sneaky good defense. They just haven't created turnovers this year. So even though they're struggling, I just don't want to force that game. So really, that 65, 6,200 Detroit, Minnesota game is where I'm leaning. If Atlanta, you think the reason that they're going to score points today is through the pass game, I'm all ears. I mean, he's worth noting. And then one I want to note is Anthony Richardson as a standalone, being only 6,000 returning without. He has basically RB1 upside as a quarterback, and he's recently priced. Want to point him out as well. I'm actually interested to see he's under 6% owned for the early only slate. So, a stackless Anthony Richardson is something that I would consider as well.
I was going to say also, Mason Rudolph has been put in as the starting quarterback. He is 4,700. It's not pretty. It's not pretty, but it's still, if you wanted to go with like the Spencer Rattler build from last week, you could do it.
Yeah, I would do straight puke if I was doing that, because I tried to do a Ridley prop last week and he had 0 catches on 8 targets. So I'm just not gonna go down that path again. I was bit once with a very good matchup.
Tyler Huntley's also a starting quarterback in this league at 5,100 off a bye. I just want to put the puke out there just so people know about the puke.
Indy as the puke, and Will Levis for some reason only had 100 yards.
Yeah.
Correlating with the why I liked Calvin Ridley so much last week.
Yep.
And Tyler Huntley could come out of nowhere. Maybe Tyreek Hill just has his bomb touchdown, or just kind of 80-yard just screen and go. But he's 7% as well, just for the record.
Yeah.
So Miami, okay, if you want to go that route, I don't care. There's not a ton of confident games outside of Detroit, Minnesota on this slate.
Yeah, I was looking at ownership, and it's crazy to see that Geno Smith is 27% owned. He's the number 1 rostered quarterback. I get it, because he's easy to stack, stuff like that. He's big, but he's not going to give you the insane upside that you probably want. And it's not a game. I mean, I'm actually picking Seattle to win, but it's not a game that I think you want to go to necessarily. Kenneth Walker being out actually makes it more interesting for the passing game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he steals so many touchdowns he had 3 touchdowns against Detroit. Yeah, exactly. And so he could steal some touchdowns if he is playing, but that's the reason I think this is interesting. But he's only thrown 1 touchdown in every game this year. Not necessarily. I just can't believe he's 27% owned with so many other quarterbacks on this slate. That's kind of insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's an okay matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Baker have 3 touchdowns, but under 200 yards against them in their Thursday night showdown a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not anything to where I would be convinced that Geno and Josh Allen combined will be over 50% of the quarterbacks today.
Right.
That just doesn't feel right.
I hope not. Well, maybe I hope. I hope that's exactly how it goes. I hope everybody is playing those 2 guys, because that seems like a really, really scary chalk. Let's make a line though. Where would you like to start quarterback wise? Which obviously we want to probably start with Detroit, Minnesota. Which side of that game would you like to go with?
I'm going to start with the Minnesota side. I'm going to do we're going to force in Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison to start this.
All right.
Build. And if we have to do a single, we can. But that's just kind of, I want to see, Sam Darnold's not typically a quarterback that we want to just single stack.
Morning, Gary. It's good to see you. Which Detroit player would you like to go with then? I think there's a lot of options. You could always go $3,500 to Tim Patrick, which makes
first look. That's kind of what I ended up doing.
Beautiful.
There's no discounts.
Yeah, he is the one guy that we can get in a good game that has upside, and he's all the way down at 3,500. I completely agree with the pick. I had to. All right. And then the next game you want to go to, or is there a way? Let's throw defense in, because I know what defense you want. It's going to be the Browns at 2,500. We played them last week. 2 weeks ago at 2,600.
Yeah, I mean, if you
against.
click on their game
Yeah, let
log,
me grab
it's
it.
not exciting. Obviously, a touchdown, but I mean, the 3 of the last 5 games they've had over 10 points. They've had at least 6 in every single one of those games, except for Dallas, of course. So they've been fine. They just weren't really getting turnovers, and now they were starting to. 2 of the last 3 games with the special team slash defensive touchdown. So this could be a lower scoring game than you expected. Obviously, Cincinnati on Monday night this past week against or Sunday night rather against the Giants had an opening drive touchdown and then the end of the game ice touchdown with a couple minutes left,
Mhm.
but had nothing in between that.
Well, what I was going to say is this feels very Broncos-esque. Of course, they're playing a better team than the Saints are. The Saints have a backup quarterback, but it feels very Broncos-esque if in this defense. So 2,500, I
This
completely
feels like
agree
an
with it.
ugly 17-13 game.
Right. It's a rivalry game, kind of. Hasn't been in a while, but it's like an division game. One of those things where they just beat up on each other. Okay, so now let's find a good spot to go for running back.
So there's honestly
There's a ton.
some good spots in a lot of people. One that I think we need to plug in for sure in an early on the slate is Tony Pollard being 63 against Buffalo.
Mhm.
Obviously, we saw Brees Hall go for 150 plus on the ground. He didn't score, unfortunately, for our captain lines of him. But Tajay Spears has been ruled out. They did
Mhm.
not elevate anybody. So it's Tony Pollard and Julius Chestnut.
I love it.
That is the running back backfield for Tennessee today without a Will Levis. So hopefully it's kind of more just the Tony Pollard show. They are on the road. Their defense actually I'm interested in just because they're minimum price and that's the only reason.
Right.
But 6,300 I think is too good to pass up. He probably will be chalky because of that, but I'm willing to eat it with him.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna stack this game. I don't know where we would go with Buffalo. We could always go find a Buffalo receiver, but it's an
It's
ugly,
it's
murky,
a bunch of
weird.
ugly dart
Yeah.
throws.
Next game though, do you want to play a Green Bay guy? Or do you want to try to go? What tight end do you want? I think that's actually a very
So the
interesting
first person
question.
that stuck out to me was David Njoku,
Yeah.
being
Agreed.
4,100. Obviously, his first game back injured in week 5, but came back week 6, led the team in targets with 7, had 5 for 31. Also, Amari Cooper was traded. So David Njoku, decent spot. There's really just not many other tight ends on this slate that just have the pass catcher one upside for their team today. And being 4,100, I think he might be one of the most popular tight ends. Yeah, he is apparently 13%, which I think is
Okay.
even lower than
Reasonable.
being the most popular tight end.
Wow. I was gonna say Dustin just updated. Brian Thomas deep catch. Jags are driving. He's
Go.
killing it. Obviously, he's just gonna. Especially when I play him, that's how that goes. That's how it works, man. Yeah, I really like David Njoku. He is a guy that is. Deshaun Watson likes tight ends. He likes throwing to his tight ends. David Njoku is now the probably best pass catcher in that offense, other than maybe Jerry Jeudy. If you want to say
Which
Jerry,
he's 48, so
yeah.
reasonable.
So going in this direction makes a lot of sense to me. Also, I think he could have 12 targets, funny enough, and get like 30 yards. 12 targets for like 30 yards wouldn't surprise me for David Njoku today.
Right.
But so yeah, let's throw him in.
And even if you want to go all the way down, just names like Grant Calcaterra as a backup for had 4 for 67, reasonably to get to. And then do we have the under 3,000 guys?
We do. We have a nice
Theo Johnson was the other one in this game. So he's just been getting the snaps, but in the last 2 games, 8 targets, 6 and 9.8. I'll take that under 3,000.
And then this
and Eric has been playing more and more. He just has caught every one of his targets except for one that was batted down last week. So if he has a random 5 target game, maybe he scores. Who knows? But tight end, there's not really a confident play today. Especially in the early only, all of the Dom tight ends for today are in the afternoon games. So it is a position to get some salary relief if you didn't want to go with the chalky David Njoku.
Well, we definitely have salary relief. You can basically do whatever you want at this next spot. Which position would you like to go? I guess we have to. Let's start with running back. I guess
let's pick a running back. Obviously, one interesting name I want to ask about is Tyler Goodson What are your thoughts on
I
him today?
love him if he's starting. I love him
So
if Trey
he's
Sermon is out.
no Trey Sermon is playing,
Oh, damn. But
but
he's the guy.
Sermon
Is
and
Trey
games,
awful, man.
but he did have a relative fantasy game 2 weeks ago. He had 16 touches last week, 60% of the snaps, but just very, very inefficient with less than 2 yards to carry. Really no pass catching upside. He actually had 6 targets the week before, which also
Crazy.
helped him get to 18 points.
Right.
But Tyler Goodson, he hovered around each of the last 2 games, 40% of the snaps. Last week he had 5 targets. The week before he had 3. But he's a 12, 13 touch upside guy that
Mhm.
maybe could fall into the end zone, but he's 54, so it's not really cheap.
Yeah, I get
It's
it.
just one of those things.
I don't hate him. I mean, he's 54 though, which is kind of weird.
And then the other one that's a very interesting name,
Mm.
because
I want
I
Zach.
do like Bijan Robinson today a lot, but so does everyone else. Apparently, he is the highest owned skill player, I believe, on this entire early only slate at
Mhm.
30%. But his running mate that pisses us off is Tyler Algier at 5,100, in the same good spot, and he's only
Right.
3%. He's 5,100.
And he's gonna score the touchdown.
I mean, we saw last week where both of them had 200 yards together and 3 touchdowns. So if you don't, if Bijan can have that 25-point game he did last week, 51, I don't hate it.
Yeah, Bijan. I mean, of course, we're all over him last week. So was everybody else. He was too cheap. Tyler Algier down here, you could have stuck him damn near at 18 for 105.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Tyler Algier believer. I think this would be a good spot for him. I don't know if it matters salary wise. We have 8,200. I
Ooh.
like that. I like that. Let's see. Is it
Wow.
worth it? Saquon? Oh,
We're almost to Amon Ra.
yeah. But we have. Do you want to bring back?
Well, I mean, there was a way to get different. Like if you wanted to.
Yeah, let's make an explosive one gamer.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't be against it.
like
But Malik Neighbors,
Neighbors.
he's back from concussion, missing 2 games, and we last saw him having 15 targets a game.
Yeah, AJ Brown has the most fantasy points per game so far this year out of anybody. 23.3. Oh, well, he's had the bonuses, so even more on DraftKings because
I mean, with him, he just has his 2 game sample size, but
Yeah.
he's scored 119 and 116 yards and a touchdown each game. So obviously, he has not had his floor game, which has inflated his numbers. Saquon obviously was great in the first 4 or 3, and then last 2 weeks have kind of been a dud.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay was a really bad game script. Obviously, only four touches. He still was efficient with those touches, but last week,
Ooh.
really tough game against Cleveland. What'd you see?
Tank scored. Tank
All
Bigsby
right.
scores 14-10 Jaguars. So it looks like we might have a chance, Cameron.
I might not be over.
Yeah, we
this year.
might not be over. So yeah, 14-10. I'm guessing it's almost halftime going into that game. Yeah, pretty close. So that's pretty good. Let's add Saquon to our. Obviously, Saquon is in our player pool. He is the upside to destroy a slate. Which guy up here would you like to go with, or would you like to move anybody around to get to somewhere else different? I mean, we could always go with Malik Neighbors and go up on defense, or whatever,
up from Tyler Algier,
or up from Tyler Algier. He gives us $700. That would be 58.
So one thing to note, because actually the Seattle Atlanta game has vaulted to, and I just noticed this, but they vaulted to the highest total on the slate today overall.
Overall,
Yeah, so
okay.
they even jumped the Carolina Washington game. So if we're talking about a way to add that game, and I was doing the math earlier, and I wasn't loving it, so it's not a confident look.
He Drake
but
London.
No.
Oh.
Taking out Tyler Algier and putting in Bijan instead.
Okay.
Allows you to get somebody like a JSN who has been steady but just not enough boom.
Right.
He's 59. I don't assume that he would be that highly owned on this slate. Let me look up the Seattle ownership. He is projected 12.
Okay.
And JSN is projected 10.
Okay.
Lock it at 8.5. Obviously, he ended up having the last second score to be optimal for our buddy in the chat. But for the last 5 games, double-digit points. 3 of those games had 13 plus. He just has only scored 1 touchdown. He hasn't had his 100-yard game since week 2.
What do you need from him?
Give me 15.
15. At 59?
59?
I think he needs 18. I think he needs more. And it's because there's not really any value. And you're sitting here, who else do we have? Ty Johnson, gross. Josh Downs, if he does play, but he's got
He is
Anthony
expected to
Richardson
play,
now.
but it's Anthony.
You have Jamison Williams. I mean, actually, I bet that's a big difference right there because of that. Wandale, if you think he's going to get 20 targets like he has in the past, it's ridiculous. They just throw to two guys.
Yeah.
So
I would have been.
I'm not against JSN, though.
Yeah.
As a first look, I think this is cool. I think that the Tyler Algier with a Saquon would also be a fine way to do it. We do like Bijan, of course, but hey, Tyler Algier taking snaps. He's actually really good at football. He's not like a 1B that is bad at football that just is annoying. He's really good.
I think because of the narrative, I think Saquon's ownership is going to be really inflated. So if we were at the Algier line, I would find a way to get up to Amon-Ra to have the stack of the JJ and Amon-Ra line. Or go down to like a Malik Neighbors, because if you're just talking to Amon-Ra versus Saquon, Saquon's actually projected to be 10% higher owned.
Wow. I did not know that.
So that's just kind of another way. And then the 17% that do go Amon-Ra, I don't know if that many are going to be able to stack both him and JJ, who is only actually at 22%. So 40% combined, but you could probably do some math and say maybe 5%, 6% of lines will have both.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're already way different doing that. And it's our favorite game, even though it's not the highest total to look into, because it's kind of like where the ball is going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I put the Titans defense in. It correlates directly with Tony Pollard. Buffalo could be continuing to be out of sorts. I mean, they have not looked good. It's not like we're gonna be like, oh, Buffalo, whatever. They had two bad games, I believe. Hold on, let's see. Yeah, they won this last game, but that was a complete shit show. And then they lost to Houston, which was also just a mad game. They've scored 21.5 or 22 points basically. And then 10 points versus Baltimore. They got blown out. I just don't think they've been that good. It's definitely not this first 2 weeks type of performance.
I mean, if we're just talking the first 2 or 3 weeks, well, then New Orleans isn't losing 5 in a row.
Oh, so yeah.
It's just like you can't just rely on only the first couple weeks and be like, that's the same team.
No, they have not looked good. And they got lucky to play a Jets team that's also looked pretty bad. So I think that, going Tennessee, and their new they add Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's not ready for this offense yet. He isn't. Obviously, he's a NFL football player. He can learn how to run. He knows oh, we're gonna run a slant here or whatever. But it's timing. It's getting connected with somebody. It's tough.
And we were out also talking like any kind of last minute props that stood out, because once fantasy scores come out, like those are later in the week props that have not been inflated yet because of the week long seeing them sit. And also Amari Cooper, we didn't know if he would play in his debut with Buffalo this week. And I brought up the total to you and you were like, it's probably going to be in the 50s. And it was 35.5. And I just feel like it's too trappy. It's just not a great matchup. Yeah. And if your wide receiver 1 is projected 35, then that means you're probably not going to be scoring a ton of points.
Yeah. Dustin did just update us. The Jacksonville Jaguars score a no, Stagger, you get to leave because you're late and you have Brian Thomas. No, Dustin did update us though. The Jacksonville Jaguars just returned a punt for a touchdown. What's up, Steiger? I don't want to hear it. I don't need it right now.
Parker Washington, 96 yards.
96. Wow. All right. Awesome.
So 20 unanswered for Jacksonville to take the lead at their basically home stadium.
Yeah, exactly. They're no jet. They don't have jet lag like the New England Patriots. Actually, New England came out hot, so I guess I can't even say that.
Right.
Let's talk about the other side or do you want to do I guess we can either do a Green Bay stack because we've talked so much about the Lions.
We'll just do this go on to the next slate.
Okay.
And if we do end up playing a second line, we'll be posting that in our Discord and you can tell if you'd like to. But it really that the only game we're really to do it in any way.
Can't with this guy. He's like, wait, what happened? No, you just woke up. Well, you're freaking scoring touchdowns with Brian Thomas, and it's all right. You don't go back to sleep. I don't need to. Let's see. Good thing is going slow. We want a game. Oh my goodness. There we go. 3-gamer.
Yeah. So this is going to be a fun afternoon slate.
Lots
Usually you don't really only see a 3-gamer, but all 3 games are viable. So,
You hate
yeah,
me.
that's so funny. But yeah, so this game, it's a 3-gamer. Obviously KC, San Fran, Vegas Raiders, or Vegas versus the Rams, which is basically a home game for the Raiders, and then the
Right.
Panthers and the Commanders, which was unseeded as the highest total on the entire slate, but still a very good spot for. So no game is fadeable, but it's only a 3-gamer, so it's kind of reasonable to get to. So it should be a fun one to talk about, actually.
Yeah, let's go into some of the quarterbacks that we want to go ahead and look at. Jaden Daniels, of course, is going to be in play. They're playing the Carolina Panthers. If you just look at these game logs, of course, he's hovering around these points, but he's only had a total of 2. He had 1 game with 3 touchdowns. That's where he went for 28. He's going against Carolina. How many touchdowns do you think how many touchdowns do you think Washington scores today? Just like overall.
I mean, 3 to 4 is just kind of
It
in
could,
the realm of possibilities. So
think
I don't see how it's under 3.
No, exactly. And I think he accounts for at least 66% of them on most occasions. So he could either have 3, in my opinion, or he could have even more than that. Would not surprise me either, though. So
Let me check what his fantasy
prop.
score projection is. According to PrizePicks, 23.5, and that's without bonuses.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they expect him to score.
There's a reason he's the most expensive, and why he might be even one of the more popular plays as well.
Mm-hmm. But it's hard to get his wide receivers right, and that's something we're going to talk about.
I mean, yeah, he's really the one that's like your solo single stack with Terry, because 3 straight games of him killing it.
What are these? This is the guy that I wanted to talk about with Zach Ertz.
Yeah, so Zach Ertz, obviously he's been one. Ben Sinnott hasn't really unseated him. He played 80% of the snaps last week. Obviously 4 for 5 for 68 yards, which was a season high. He just hasn't scored yet.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is just there's so many good tight ends up top in great spots. Unless we're doing a double tight end with the Zach Ertz, I don't really see myself getting to him in kind of that regard. But also, Carolina has given up 13 touchdowns to running back this year. So it's a great spot. The only thing is Brian Robinson banged up. He is expected to play.
Yeah.
So it does make things a little muddy. Maybe it kind of lowers the ceiling a little bit, but he's still in a great spot as well. So is Austin Eckler, who had his first game back last week.
Sorry, I cut you off on Terry McLaurin. Let's talk. He has been recently in the last 4 games, averaging 20-ish points. He's just been the target hog. He's been the best player. He's gotten big plays. He's gotten touchdowns. He had 66 yards on 1 against Cleveland, 52 against 55 against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's just been really good, and got to talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, him being under 7,000 is still a bargain, I think, based on the way he is, the matchup he has, being one of the highest point totals overall today, at least. And yeah, he's been absolutely killing it. I don't know if it's lightning in the bottle or if it's something that can be sustainable, because typically running style rookie quarterbacks don't really produce wide receiver ones for a season long perspective. But he's having a hell of a stretch, and this is a week to week thing on DraftKings, so he is definitely in the pool.
Yeah, and I also think I'm almost to the point where I'm gonna stop comparing Jaden Daniels to a rookie running style quarterback, because he's been so good consistently. They basically scored the most points of any team since week
3.
Yeah, 3. There we go. Yeah, because the first 2 weeks, I mean, yeah, okay, he looked like a rookie, but then all of a sudden it was like boom. So I am him, beating Baltimore, or losing to Baltimore in a very close game. That was a very good loss. Yeah, so I think that I'm ready to say, okay, Jaden Daniels is not a rookie. He's older. He's 20. It's not like he's a 21-year-old rookie like Drake May either. That's not something. He's a much older guy.
Yeah, and if we're looking at ownership, just from the Washington side, a lot of people are getting to Washington. The most popular quarterback by far is Jaden Daniels at 46%.
Wow.
Terry McLaurin, the most popular skill player, 51% owned. So, when it's that high owned, maybe it gets a little nerve wracking to invest in. But basically after that, Noah Brown's actually pulling 13, 14%. And Brian Robinson's pulling 43.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So and Eckler is still pulling 14 himself. So those are really the guys to get to if you're even looking at the Washington side. But yeah, they're a good team to target on this one.
And then on the other side of the game, because we like talking in pairs today, the Carolina Panthers have obviously going to have a good game script. They're projected to lose by 9.5, I believe. So they're going to have a good game script for their quarterback, Andy Dalton. He should be throwing the ball because of the fact that they're going to be down. Let me check out his log because I know. So last game against Atlanta, down, threw it 38 times. Against Cincinnati, threw it 40 times. 37 times against the Raiders when we had him as our puke stack. He went for 27. He has an upside of that. Washington last year gave up the most points of any team, and their secondary isn't necessarily doing great. That's the biggest problem with this Washington team. They are susceptible to getting scored on. They have a good offense to score. Andy Dalton could be a guy that could score for them. He is our puke stack of the week.
Yeah, and I'm looking at these numbers like ownership wise, and some of them might be a little inflated just because, like for example, Patrick Mahomes against San Fran, not a great matchup, but it's fine. They're off a bye too. 0.2% owned doesn't make any sense. He should be closer to 8 to 10, even if he's not one of the more popular ones. But really, the three quarterbacks that are being targeted today: Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, and Andy Dalton are the three. But with the Carolina side, I mean, and again, this could be very, very inflated, but Chuba Hubbard, one more week without Jonathan Brooks, 81%.
You have to have him. How do you fade him?
Avoid him. He has scored at least 15 every single game. Scored 3 touchdowns. Last week he did not, obviously, but I mean, and he's over 5 yards a tote as well. So he's being efficient with his runs, even though he's a 10-point underdog. Him being that popular, it's for a good reason.
I think it's hard for me to. I never want to play chalk at 80%. That's crazy. But how do you fade him? Like honestly, because
honestly,
thinking about
there are interesting running backs on this slate as well. So
Brian
if
Robinson.
you're only going to running backs, you can get away from him, and we'll talk about a couple of the guys that we like. But on this slate, at least, it's not as murky in terms of the running back room because maybe you just want to double pun, be 2 under 6,000. Maybe you want to, avoid him, but instead go Brian Robinson, who is half the ownership.
Right. For sure.
Obviously Jordan Mason, he's finally not going to be chalk after 5-6 weeks because he's injured and he's the most expensive so far this year, and it's a bad matchup.
I wish me and you would have just said, "Hey, we're going to fade Jordan Mason each week," and we would have been very happy.
We would have,
because I literally
of those weeks we were underweight, so it's not like
right.
It's not like we just completely just put our entire load into.
Yeah, I definitely. I know on one of the streams I was like, maybe we can fade Jordan Mason, and we didn't end up doing it, and then he went for 10 or whatever. But talking about the pass game, guys, Deontay Johnson. He is the target hog, especially out. I think if Adam Thielen, it's a lot more key, but since Adam Thielen's been out, he's gotten 14, 13. That's 6-point game. He was blanketed by Jalen Johnson, who is the best corner. I mean, he's top 3 corner in football, so it's tough. 10 targets last week, touchdowns in 3 of those. He's been really good. You have to pick between him and Chuba, basically, so you could get away from Chuba in that way. Xavier Legette, you have to talk about. He did have down at the end of the game. At the end of the game? Yeah, I believe it was the end of the game last week. And then going
2 in his last 2 healthy games.
Jonathan Mingo, he's an option. Absolutely. 3,600 gives you that. He only had one yard last game.
Yeah,
but he did have a touchdown.
He's regressed in his snap counts in 3 straight games, and Xavier Legette, for the record, in his 2 healthy games, because obviously he was week 5, he left the game, didn't return. He had 87% in week 4, 77% last week. He scored in both games. So very concerning with Jonathan Mingo. The interesting one that is actually gaining some ownership, but he's a minimum price guy, and you haven't even put him on the.
We're talking about Jalen.
It's Jalen Coker.
He's minimum. I mean, I know he's minimum price, but he's getting no ownership.
Well, he's getting about 14. He's actually more than Xavier.
Oh, okay.
Legette.
I was about to say,
but
he better.
Yeah,
have
he had
ownership.
a couple of targets last week. He played 65. He's basically their slot guy by default. But 7 targets the last 2 weeks, caught them all. But he got 11, 6. Sure,
right.
He's minimum price, and then obviously you were about to click on Jatavion Sanders, who is going up and up in terms of his snap counts and shares. Tommy Tremble, I believe, in.
Yeah.
So last 2 weeks, 12 targets between the two. He just hasn't scored yet. Tight ends, doesn't matter.
Yep.
We're just looking for something pukey at the end to kind of make it work. But he's going to probably be gaining no ownership on this slate. He's got 6% actually.
So I guess I have a question because I think we will be playing other tight ends on this slate.
Yes.
There's some really good tight ends up top between Jatavian Sanders and we talked about this a little bit on the other slate on the show, but Jalen Coker and Jatavian Sanders, who would you rather have?
Honestly,
if you just had to pick one.
Ownership wise, target wise, it makes sense to go Jatavian instead. And on top of that, nobody's really going to go double tight end. And the 6% that have him, guarantee you the majority of those guys are just playing single tight end.
Exactly.
So if we're doing a double tight end, have him in a flex or whatever fun tight end in the flex. That's kind of an interesting tournament way to go.
Yeah,
to bring back if you went the Washington side.
There's one more quarterback, and I know you put a question mark next to his name, and you should never do anything like that.
Okay.
Don't you dare.
So it's the problem is just the grossness of the.
I'm not even gonna click on the running backs.
I mean, to be fair, Alex Madison does have some pass catching upside. He's only 55. He was one of those that I wanted to mention.
Yeah,
they are bottom 10 against running backs, so that's something worth mentioning. But Zamir White has not been ruled out yet, so if he does play, I'm not playing Alex Madison. Look at the names that you're clicking on. No.
hold on. It's not over.
Okay.
There's more.
There's more.
It gets worse. I think Bachman is the one that I can click on next.
Yeah, Alex Bachman.
Actually had.
Boy.
Look at these names. We got Trey Tucker. We got DJ Turner. I don't even know what Kay Wilkerson's first name is.
His name
Kendall
is
Christian. Okay, it's with a K. Cameron.
Yep.
Okay. And then Bachman here.
Yeah. So
gross.
This is awful.
but
it's
so cheap.
Obviously, Devontae Adams officially gone from the team, but he had not been playing the previous 3 weeks. Jacoby Myers is doubtful again. So I wouldn't expect. So they're down their top players again. Obviously, the reason that we mentioned that and the only logical explanation of a safe play is Brock Bowers.
He's going to be in a lot of our lines.
5,800. He's in a ton of today. He was a thumbnail.
His ownership. I wonder.
He's 22. He's kind of split in the middle with Travis Kelce.
Okay.
Him, George Kittle, and Travis Kelce are getting about 70% combined, and it's good reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Look at the last 2 weeks: 22 targets combined. He scored 16, 24.
Aiden will throw him the ball. AOC, come on, baby.
The only thing is doing a double, which is what you have to, because I saw this stat with Aiden O'Connell. He has not once attempted a scramble on a drop back in his entire career.
That sounds exactly like
so
Aiden
that
O'Connell.
Is yeah, exactly. But that correlates with saying, oh, usually non-scramble quarterbacks you want to have two pass catchers with.
I'm sorry.
And so who in the hell are we going to double if we do go Aiden? That's kind of the one reason I have that question mark.
One thing too, and I would actually, funny enough, I think I'd side with DJ Turner. I think that I wonder what his ownership is. Looking at these ownerships, of course, let's just exclude everybody and just look at the Raiders. I know it's ugly, but
yeah. So Trey Tucker's actually still at 30%.
Yeah,
coming off his dud week. Brock I had mentioned at 22. DJ Turner's at 8.7.
Yeah,
pretty reasonable.
Tyreek McAllister.
Alec Bachman's not even on this thing.
Tyreek McAllister is the next highest.
Tyreek McAllister, he didn't even play last week, but he's getting ownership.
Tough, man.
Yeah.
But
it's rough.
I think, I mean, Brock Bowers is in everything you do with Aiden O'Connell. But if you wanted to pick one of Trey Tucker, DJ Turner, and Steiger, I know that it's making you look nauseous, but hear me out.
We've hit on our puke
stacks. And it's so cheap. You can go up and get the guys you want. Terry McLaurin could go into your line really quick. You could get a second tight end on this slate, which are, George Kittle. You could go to Jordan Mason. You could go all the way up. It makes it very interesting. Hey Sam, happy to see you here, man. But I'm going to say that it's the easiest thing ever to get the bring back for this stack.
No, for sure.
So that makes it easy too.
And last thought before we do go on, I know typically it's just like if we're doing a main lineup and it's Aiden, I'm completely fine just doing him and then the single with Brock.
Yeah.
But on an afternoon slate, there's not a ton of value again. Just punting a 3,000 guy as a double, maybe he farts into the end zone or something.
Oh my God.
Something
rolls around.
That's the only way that Aiden O'Connell is going to have a 20 game. So getting one of these guys, it opens up a lot of relief.
Okay, so a few weeks ago, both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua go down, we attack, and Kyron Williams, we don't get on him, and he's the guy that goes crazy and does everything, right? Could Alex Madison also be a small Kyron Williams, like a terrible Kyron Williams this week, where they're like, hey, let's throw the ball to him instead of DJ Turner. Let's throw the ball to him instead of Alex Bachman. This is a crazy thought, obviously.
The only thing is just the one relief guy that they have. It's not Dylan Lobb like many best ballers thought it would be.
Right.
It's Amir Abdullah, and he's a pure pass catcher. So if you even clicked on his name, where is he actually?
He is right here. 45.
So his last games, he's had 8 targets.
Yeah.
So obviously he is also getting pass catching work. So it's not like Alex Madison is just going to have a Kamara-esque opportunity in the pass game. But in terms of carries, goal line threat, there's nobody that's going to touch him in terms of that. But it's just a wait and see with Zamir White, because even though Zamir White is the worst play of the two between him and Madison, if he does play, vulture opportunities.
7 stuff like that. Yeah, we would hope Zamir White's out to make this easier. All right, we'll stop talking about that. Let's go back and talk about a line. Which quarterback would you like to start with, the top or the bottom, basically?
Let's start with a Andy Dalton stack.
All right, I love it because I know exactly where we're going to go at running back. Okay. Can I just?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, Kyron Williams, especially without Cooper Kupp, he's just one of our favorite running backs today.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp is out. It says question. I think he said
not expected to play.
Unlikely to play.
He's not.
So that would be considered doubtful.
But we've seen. Don't be shocked because we've seen craziness before. But just kind of keep an eye on it.
Which receivers?
I don't know. Well, it has to be Deontay if we're going.
Well, yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
And the way to get different off of Achuba, if you are going to fade him, doing a double and being like, hey, they're going to score 3 touchdowns, but
he's not going to have one.
Yeah, and it's reasonable to assume that he didn't score last week. So even though he did have a really solid fantasy performance, but if you're going to be 80% owned and you only get 15 points, that's not going to be just for certain it's optimal.
Right.
So Andy Dalton, he was the start of this peak stack run. Maybe we can just kind of continue riding the wave. I actually want to put Jatavion Sanders in.
Okay.
Just because we did that with the main first look. We have not played the afternoon yet, so it'd be interesting to see what kind of money we can save.
Well, I also want to ask you which Washington player you want. Highest total by far on this slate out of the 3 games.
This is tough. So if we're looking at ownership, Terry McLaurin 51%, Brian Robinson 43%. Most people are going to have both. Shoot. Let's go ahead and go with Terry.
Okay. I think I'm more comfortable with Terry too.
Okay.
So sure. I'm worried. So I know Terry's going to get 9 targets, 8 to 9 targets probably. That seems reasonable, right? We're not okay. So I think Austin Eckler randomly, annoyingly could score a touchdown, which pisses everybody off because you have Brian Robinson and everything, and then he does that. So I just think there's less vulturing for Terry because I think he'll get his with or without a touchdown.
The other thing though is obviously we haven't mentioned him yet, but still Juju Smith-Schuster is mispriced at 4,000.
Yeah.
But we do have a little bit of opening up in terms of value at receiver with Cooper Kupp being in Jordan Whittington or Tutu Atwell, both in good spots as well. And I'm not against on a 3-game slate doing a double ram
for sure.
And in that case, going or flipping to Brian Robinson is in the cards.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get that. Do we want to go double tight end here?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not playing. I'm not playing Jatavion Sanders, and you know who exactly we're going.
Okay, I thought that might be the case. Which defense, and then it'll leave us our salary to know.
Defense is tough
to know. Yeah,
I think probably the safest is going like your winner of the Kansas City San Fran game. Kansas City has been the better defense. They just haven't had a ton of turnovers and stuff. Obviously, 6 a game, but 7 points against New Orleans. They shut them down. They just had 1 sack,
right,
and nothing else, and a pick. And then the Chargers, only 10 points allowed, but just 2 sacks, nothing else. So maybe Brock Purdy, this is one of his puke games, and he just does bad.
I hope so.
That's kind of who I wanted to put in.
Well, I was going to say we're fading him.
That's an awkward price, though.
We're fading him, and he's 27%. So 7,500. Yeah, it's a little gross.
So if we went,
that would be crazy.
what take out Terry real quick. What are the top receivers that we're fading at the very, very moment?
Debo.
Okay,
Xavier
so we're
Woods.
not really spinning up anything. So maybe it's not even in the cards to have to go down to a Jatavion.
Did you want to go with a different receiver for
Yeah.
Carolina, or
Go
did you
ahead
want to go
and-
Chuba?
We'll still have 1,000 remainder though.
Right. I'm saying, let me put Brock where he's
So
supposed
just
to.
double up on Carolina's,
Main
safest
guys.
players.
Yeah. Like,
Not against that. I mean, he has pass catching
where's he
upside.
at? Like this, and
Sure.
then 5,100.
I mean, that's a.
I can put Terry in. I could
We
put
need a
Brian
Washington
in.
guy.
I
Yeah.
put Terry in 3,900. I don't know what that gives us. I don't know who's.
Not
let's see.
much.
Yeah, De'Ami Brown, Zach Ertz, Kobe. We could have just gone up 1,000 from originally because we're basically in the same spot. Let me pull him out. Let's put
Robinson in.
Oh, I know where we're gonna go. We're
Okay.
gonna do something gross.
Okay.
We're gonna go to Brian,
All right.
and we're gonna go to
Three.
$4,200
Trey
Tucker, which is
So double Raider, single Ram, double stack, bring back with Brian,
right.
KC. We're basically fading the entire
KC
game except for Juju.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, on a
don't like it.
on a 3-gamer, why not? Right? It's not like an uncomfortable thing for a 3-gamer, in my personal opinion.
No, and other than Deontay Johnson not having a good game against Chicago, every single game that Deontay Johnson has done well, Chuba's.
Oh yeah, let me grab. Sorry, wrong
So
person.
no, either one that you want can say, but 4 straight games of above 15, and he scored 3 in 3 games, and Deontay scored in 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
He's had at least 4 targets in every single game. He's had over 100 yards in every single game.
Yep.
But Deontay has also done that same upside, and they're both the same price. And instead of picking one or the other, we just pick both.
Yep. I want to do something funny for our viewers. If you want to be different, everybody, you just take Mr.
I honestly think that, real quick before you go on, that is a really solid cash build.
Yes.
Because there's not a single guy that is low owned that we're playing.
Right.
Every single guy together is like going to be north of 20%, in my opinion. So complete cash game, but yeah. All right, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say also, if you're on the San Fran side, they're $100 cheaper. Just switch over. I think the Rams are probably the safest, but we want to play a lot of Raiders today.
A lot is an interesting word to
I'm
describe.
excited about it.
Okay.
No, what I was gonna say though, if that is your cash build, I wanted to say if you wanted to get a little different, you just take that guy out and you put Aiden in. You have a double stack still and a bring back.
That's true.
Yeah, you could just do that, and if you think Aiden can outscore Andy Dalton today,
can we try to do something fun real quick?
I want to.
Okay, so I want to try to do a double, and we don't even have to maneuver around too much. But actually, no, I know exactly what I want to do. Go from Brian Robinson down to Travis Kelce.
Ooh, okay.
100 different. Maybe it's not. Oh no, it is. Trey Tucker.
2.
Oh well.
You're one. Mind. What?
Because we're doing the Aiden O'Connell thing.
Yeah, because I went down here.
Yeah.
So that's your money change.
Well, I was trying to get up to a Whittington or an Atwell as another guy. But again, it's a single stack for Aiden.
Which is fine. I've seen the
single double bring back.
Yeah, single double bring back.
Double Carolina, no Washington.
3 weeks ago, who was it? Well, 3 weeks ago that won the Millie. I can't think of who it was.
Gotcha. And so, and I know we just did a double Carolina, but in this specific build, I think I would prefer Brian Robinson over Chuba, just to not have double Carolina, no Washington, who's the highest point total on the entire slate.
That's fair.
And then have a just single of both. And then I think that correlates well.
Yeah.
Double Kansas City, but getting double tight end up top, that's another way to get different of the chalk, because if 2 of the most popular tight ends are going to play, not many people are going to play double tight end. And Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce, you go look at Travis Kelce's game log, because he struggled to start the year. First game without receiver, had his 10 target game, 9 for 70. And then the week before, when he did go down, 7 for 89. He just still hasn't scored this year yet, but it's coming. That's just kind of something I wanted to bring up and if you didn't prefer one of these two and you wanted to get Kittle instead because he is tight end 1 overall, fine doing that as well. He's basically the same price. That premise is, I think, another interesting build. I'm actually probably interested in doing multiple afternoon lines just because of that same premise of
Right.
you do, your typical standard line, but then your different line, and getting 2 tight ends, I think, is a fun way.
I wish I could get 3 tight ends.
Yeah.
I wish that was the thing. It's
Right.
not. Let's go up because I want to build one line real quick. Let's do a quick one.
Okay.
We have to play Jaden Daniels in a line because we haven't
Yeah,
done that
true.
yet.
If he's going to be 50 or 46%,
let's build it so that we can see it because it's a lot more murkier than I think we want it to be. I think it
you want to do it as a single or a double?
I think I want to go single.
Single. Okay.
It'll save us some money too.
That's fine.
I got to go to Juju. Anybody else that you think has to be in the line really quick? Defense.
Not has to, but I know we got to do some value.
Yeah, Chiefs, I guess.
Sure. Okay, so
we're not going to get Kyron. It's going to suck.
Put Bowers in because we're not fading Bowers on the afternoon slate. I just can't do it.
Okay. So we're here.
Okay.
Running back wise,
so we haven't put in Kyron yet.
We could go Kareem Hunt.
Put in Kyron just real quick. I need to see
it's
something.
Gotta be tough. We have some value.
We can do it. No. This is exactly what we're gonna do. So we haven't done a Coker line, just as an example. So if you went Coker, the easy turnaround is doing way down there.
Yep.
Is turnaround and your preference between Tutu and Jordan Whittington is there, or Xavier Legette if you wanted to do a second Carolina receiver. Yeah. Oof. I think it's fun.
Okay. Maybe 2. Let's go 2-2.
Okay.
But I mean, you can play any of them. Just pick your favorite there. That's last person in is always
Tutu's been the steady one, but Jordan Whittington's had the boom, but he's also still questionable. He was limited all week, so you don't know how specific that'll go, and we don't know the answer to his in or out until later in this contest. So that's why Discord's important. Getting the final looks and stuff like that, we'll be releasing that probably somewhere around 2:00.
Yep. Let me go grab the next slate. What is the next slate?
So typically we do a Sunday time,
and
we are not prime time because it is the Jets and the Steelers, and there's no discounts. It's awful. Devontae Adams' first game back. Whether or not you think he's going to have his first game being a boom, you got to spend up for him. There's just no value. It's not a great slate. We might play it anyways, but it's not like we're going to bamble for about 10 minutes. So these $200 players we're looking to play on a game that might be 17-13.
Right, for sure.
So primetime, 3 game slate this week. So obviously it's the Jets, Steelers, Ravens, and Bucks, and then the Cardinals and the Chargers. So the Monday has its own contest, and it is really fun because it doesn't have the game that we just talked about that we don't like.
I can pick that one if you'd rather.
No, I mean, because this slate is also still going to pull an ownership for Adams or Breece Hall.
Right.
So I want to see even fading this game, I think is reasonable because it does get off ownership. I mean, we talk about Breece Hall being 66%. If we don't like him, that's an easy way to get different. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're fading the low owned game and there's the risk.
It's also a 39.5 point total. It's not like we're like excited. No one no one expects it to be a good game either.
Exactly. Garrett Wilson and Devontae are 3 of the 4 highest owned skill players.
Gross.
So, or actually, I have that filtered wrong. They're both north of 22%, which is not terrible
on this slate.
Yeah,
that's okay. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. So that's the reason I'm fine keeping it in, even if we're going to fade that game for the most part.
Perfect. The guys, quarterback. Which quarterback? Let's just build a line straight out.
Okay.
The quarterbacks we would talk
that I
about,
want to talk about is Lamar, Baker Mayfield, because that's a fun game, high total. We're on opposite sides of that game, but then also Justin Herbert in a really good spot, 5,500. It's the cheapest he's ever been. It's not like he's been performing that, and awful from a fantasy perspective. Hasn't had a game above 13 yet this year. But because of a couple of receiver injuries, Quinn Johnson's doubtful. Darius Davis might not play. DJ Chark is eligible to return. It still remains to be seen if he will. He's minimum priced. Lad McConkey, questionable. So there's a lot of cheap options if you wanted to afford some of these higher expensive guys.
Right. Well, we will get news on all this stuff. We won't have it right now, obviously, but we'll get news later on that'll tell us if these guys are in or out, giving us the ability. The Monday only might be easier for the fact that we might not get this news until tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say we'll get this news. We'll know who's in and out. It'll be easier to construct a lineup if you are going Justin Herbert at quarterback. Which quarterback do you want to go with out of the three?
I kind of want to start with Lamar to see how we can build it. I mean, his ceiling is just much higher than any other quarterback. And he's the most rostered guy, 2-1 based on the next most rostered guy, 22.6 projected. The next highest is 18.
The Jags score a field goal. Cam Little, 21-yard field goal, up
Run away
25
with it.
to 10, baby. Oh, man, I should have hit that.
Run right into the playoffs. What?
Oh, Cam, I think you have a bold prediction.
Oh, it's not necessarily a bold prediction, but I just see based on their schedule, there's avenues and ways, even though there's some tough, games coming up. I don't necessarily see this team just being dead in the water yet, but they do have to beat some tough teams before their bye in week 12 is
12,
their bye. They have their next 4 against Green Bay, Philly, Minnesota, and Detroit. Very tough on paper, but I see them possibly squeezing 2 games of that out. And if they can do that, then I might say something in November.
Okay. Lamar Jackson's paired with Zay Flowers.
Yes.
Who is...
You know what pissed me off is that, and it didn't even matter that, you were with my ass last week with Zay Flowers, but he had 9 for 132 in the first half. Didn't have a target in the second half.
I know. That's just how they play. It was a close
game.
That's how they do it.
It was so frustrating.
That's just how they play, man.
I know. It's awful.
Ridiculous.
But yeah,
we had him in our lines. That's why it was frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, he's frustrating to play. It is worth noting if you want to go to tight end real quick, and he's been a topic of conversation, especially in our friend league. But Mark Andrews has finally started to get a little of the ball rolling with his fantasy scoring. Obviously, he had 2 straight back-to-back weeks of 1 target, no catches, but 5 targets, 4 for 55, week 5, very serviceable. And then last week was his season low in price, 39. And I don't remember if I brought it up of like, oh, this is the game that he finally scores, but it looked very bleak for about a quarter and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a long catch and run of 38 yards, and then he scored the touchdown. So he is in the player pool with the tight end slate that really is just Trey McBride or bust. So worth mentioning if you want to double, cool. It's not like you got to spend up for him anymore.
Yeah. Who do you want to talk about? Let's get to some line building so we can get to Maine. Okay. I know that everybody wants to.
So let's go with J.K.
Dobbins. Okay.
And then
who do you want for Tampa Bay?
It's tough, man. Well, Chris Godwin is the receiver I'd want. Mike Evans was banged up from a hamstring injury that popped up in practice. He's going to play, but just kind of a little risky. But Baltimore has been bad against receivers so far this year. I don't really have a dog in the fire with the defense. Jets, because we both have picked them to win.
Yeah, that's
trying
to
squeeze them in.
That.
All right.
4,600.
Tight end wise, the decision you need to make is: are we going cheap tight end or are we going Trey McBride?
You have to go cheap here in this line, I think.
Okay. So is this a Cade Otton?
Yeah, it's got to be Cade Otton, right?
All right.
Double bring back.
It's fine with me.
Okay. Running back. God, we have no money.
We have no money.
It's so hard with Lamar.
But one of the ways, again, to kind of get some relief is Chargers receivers. I mean, Josh Palmer is one of those that I wanted to mention because he hasn't had his boom game yet.
Right.
But he's one of the only healthy receivers at the moment. And he also was banged up to start the year. So he had only 55% of the snaps last week. So they were really just kind of receiver by committee as well in terms of snap share. But Quentin Johnston's out. I don't think that Simi Fehoko is just going to get more than 50%. So
I have a fun name.
Tell me.
Well, I put Josh Palmer in, but what do you think about Sean Tucker?
I was considering him.
It depends, obviously, if Rashad White plays. Don't play him if Rashad White's in. It's going to be it's very murky, but he did have a ton of points in this last week. He broke 37.2. They're going to give him more opportunities. He's good at football. He is Dustin. If Dustin is still in the chat, well, you know who Trey Tucker is. That's one of his favorite guys coming out of college. I think he's an option.
Yeah,
at 4,000.
And on top of that, being on the Monday slate, if you don't like this prime time and you don't want to include the Jets and Steelers because of the potential ownership and risk, that's fine. Just play the Monday on the slate, and you get that news before lock.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this build, let's just play pretend and say Rashad White's out. He's minimum price, so you got to play him at that point. So last guy in is Garrett Wilson.
It free basically at that point.
Man,
Trey McBride. We could go up a tight end.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Go up to McBride real quick, and I just want to see something.
45.
For my life. 45.
What?
Zay Jones is
okay.
active for the first time this year. Pat Fryermuth doing double tight end.
Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman's been pretty solid. And
Isaiah Likely. We could double
let's do
this
a double.
way. Okay.
And I would probably prefer Rashad.
Yeah.
Right? Is that
yep,
a thing?
That's what I think. Okay. He had a bunch of targets, or he's had a bunch of targets. So 12 targets in the last 2 weeks. That's actually really good for Lamar on a number 2. So I think that's solid.
Projected 8.9. So yeah.
And he's gone for double digits 3 times this year already.
Basically heavy into that one game. But maybe. Very solid.
Yeah, 3 times. So yeah, let's get it.
Sweet.
Let's go to Maine.
All right. Let me pull up some X and see if there's any kind of updates. I know we're still 7 minutes before Inactive comes out. But again, we're still in one where we're looking at Walker.
Right.
He'll play. He's just going to get memed out of his mind if he ends up not playing.
It's going to be awesome. We need that. I also would love to play Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to open up everything if he's playing because it's different.
Right. We talked about all these quarterbacks. Do you have a quarterback that you want to start with?
Let's start with a Sam Darnold build.
Okay, perfect. Love that.
And whether it's single or it's double doesn't necessarily matter to me, but I know the one guy that we're stacking.
That one right
first.
there. Yeah. Okay. Do Detroit?
Tim Patrick was the name that just kind of gravitates just because of the cheapness, but it's not like I have a dog in the fight or feel strongly about it.
Fair enough, though. I think Tim Patrick makes a lot of sense. He gives you the salary relief, and now we can, and especially because we got went all the way up to Justin Jefferson. So
plug in Juju.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Gotta have
this
him.
one will be an expensive running back one.
So Kyron.
Yeah, Kyron, and then obviously we're gonna bring back with our favorite tight end.
Of course, why wouldn't we? Bam, 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 bam.
GP.
Let's go Browns.
Okay. Browns to Super Bowl.
Hey, I had them winning 12 games. And I'm wrong. I am so wrong.
Hey,
they look like that.
Yeah, that was our biggest difference in terms of record prediction and
them and the Chargers.
Yeah. Okay, so 57 left. Oh,
I don't hate 57 left, actually. Funny enough, I think that there's Tyler Algier. If we do get the Zach Charbonnet's the guy, you get 6,100 for Kareem Hunt, Jameson. If you wanted to do double bring back, wrong side of that game. George Kittle, Eckler. If I think Brian Robinson's in though, so things like that. Let me take him off. Oh, we didn't play any Carolina.
True. We don't necessarily need to in this build. I'm not saying that we need to go 100% exposed to Carolina. It's honestly not a comfortable week to build.
Oh, this guy. That's who I want.
Oh, yes.
I want that guy. Yes. And then I want Tyler Algier.
I don't know if I'd prefer him over
Xavier Legette, Tutu. Which one? I'm fine with either. I mean, we already have a Ram, though.
Oh. You're right. Let me look at some values real quick that kind of speak to me. Jordan Williamson is the highest projected value on the entire slate.
Wow.
At 2.77x.
Okay.
Which translates to 13 fantasy points. In that regard, it looks pretty good picking him.
10% owned too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really an ownership that I thought would
warrant that.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes these numbers can be inflated, and not everybody looks at a RotoWire.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Same price. Jordan Whittington, Jerry Jeudy. It's like where's Jerry
basically
Jeudy?
the same ownership.
Really?
A couple of fantasy points less. 9% roster projected.
Where would you put him though? Who do you think scores more? See, it's not as easy as they're making it out to be on here.
Right. I would say Whittington.
Okay. We'll put him in.
Doesn't feel good about it though.
I was thinking Judy with the Cleveland defense getting, someone to score in that game would be him. But yeah, I like this line as a first look. We obviously might play it. We might not. You'll have to see our lines in Discord, but this is a good way to start your build and look at your build. We really like Kyron. We really like going Justin Jefferson, the Sam Darnold stack, and then the bring back with a cheap Tim Patrick rather than going all the way up. Gives us salary relief to go to Brock Bowers and some of these other guys. So
Right.
I like it. Let's try again.
Do you want to go expensive quarterback? Do you want to go cheap quarterback? Because
I want to go cheap.
Okay.
And I'll let you decide which one. I think you're more on the Andy Dalton side.
Yeah, I'm on Andy Dalton today.
I think I'm in the middle.
He's the highest overall value today at 3.07x, which is basically 16 fantasy points. Which, if he gets that, it's excellent for us.
Oh yeah,
only 6% rostered too. So
that's crazy.
Even though I think Deontay is. Let's see. Deontay is actually only 9% owned today.
On the big slate?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Chuba is the highest owned flex player on the entire slate for any team, but he's only 26%. So It's not like, even though we saw such chalk on the afternoon, because it's a 10 gamer instead of a 7 gamer.
Kenneth Walker is active.
Okay, he's officially active.
Yeah, got it.
All right, no more Charbonnet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to play Kenneth Walker.
Who else?
But we liked his rushing prop still.
That is
what?
Let's say what. Oh,
the way that you grabbed your phone like an old man.
Well, yeah, I thought I saw it wrong. Demario Douglas is questionable to return. Guess why?
He got hit in the nuts.
Illness.
Oh,
mid-game illness.
He gave it right to Kenneth Walker from across the pond.
a mid-game illness, bro. That's crazy. So. I've never seen anything like that. Okay, let's start with this. Who do you want as your second player in this stack, or do you want to wait? We can also wait, of course.
Yeah, I would say. Well, actually, no. I want to go with the. Let me see the ownership for Carolina players. Jatavion Sanders less than 3%. Coker is all the way at 4.4. So basically everybody's below 5 in that game except for the big four, which is Deontay, Terry, Brian, and Chuba.
Okay. Do you want Terry as your bring back?
Man.
Or do you want Brian?
Okay. Let's do Terry. And we have to go. Can we get to Justin? I don't know if I can fade Justin today.
Okay. Well, let's go defense, obviously. We can go with Jatavion Sanders and but we'll be fading Brock most likely.
I don't want to though.
I'm just telling you. you wanted to go.
Man, this sucks. Okay.
I mean, you could play Brock.
Okay.
We could play Colker and Brock. We could play Sanders and Brock, just depending on which one. I think you can do it.
Okay. Put Brock in.
We need 2 running backs still.
Yeah.
I know which ones I want.
Okay.
So 58. Where's
58?
Man, there's a lot of players. All right.
So Tony Pollard.
That's the one of them. Wow, I went all the way down.
Wish it was that cheap. And 54. That's a weird range.
Goodson. Oh, grossness.
Wow. What a name.
Let me do something. Can you play single stack Andy Dalton? That's not real, right?
Yeah, no, you can do that.
That seems gross. Well, it's not like you should though. When you have $3,000,
we need something cheap.
900.
Even if we don't go a Coker or a Tavion.
Who would you rather have here? We talked about it multiple times, but you can have either one. So would you?
Okay, what if we went?
Coker's $100 more.
Put Coker first.
Bless you.
Excuse me. And then that's 53.
Yeah.
Is there a 57 receiver that you like?
Receiver?
57 or mid-tier receiver.
You want to ask me Addison? No.
What? Well, that would be a weird one.
Yeah, rigorous. No.
No?
Not really. But I know what you're trying to do.
I know. I'm trying so hard.
I can switch them and just look.
Yeah, go to Brian.
I mean, at the same time, we can put Colker in for the wide receiver spot. So it'll give us that.
Man. Okay. What if we use this line? Take out Bowers.
Ooh. Okay.
Put in. I think this works. Put in Amon-Ra.
Okay.
Yes. I'm shooting for the stars.
Whatever you say, man.
And then that's Calcaterra.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do it. $3,200 Calcaterra. Makes sense to me. I think
So you got a double. You got a bring back. You got a chalky but fun running back. You have like I said, Justin and Amon-Ra. They're going to be owned, but they're not going to be played very much together.
right.
Only 16% owned for Justin Jefferson and 13% owned for Amon-Ra. So if only 29% of the slate combined,
Mhm.
like from a math perspective, have that is probably about 3 to 4% have both. And so what happened?
Does that say what it is? Dorian Thompson? Hold on. I have to look at this. That was actually a big deal. Hold on. For the first time this season, Browns quarterback Winston is officially the. Oh, okay. It said Dorian Thompson Robinson is the team's number 2, but I thought it was like
To Evan Winston.
he's third. They put him as, but like I don't know why that was.
On in there?
I was looking for the report in it because I was like, did they put DTR as the starter in this game? What is happening?
Ray Davis is active, just for the record.
Yes.
We liked him a lot, but James Cook played or practiced all week. Josh Downs and Alex Pierce are in.
Mhm.
Will Levis officially inactive. As we mentioned earlier, Mason Rudolph is going to start today. Aaron Jones, barring no pregame setbacks, is expected to play against the Lions. Yeah, so nothing really crazy, shocking that jumped out, even though his mannerisms said otherwise. But yeah, I mean, we're fishing up. But going back to this line real quick, I know the Coker is gross, and if you don't like him, go Jatavion.
Yeah, we just put him right here.
But again, like you get a double, you get a bring back of one of the highest total games, fun running back. The main thing with Andy Dalton is that you wanted to have something expensive or good to go up to. And so I don't know if we play 5 lines hypothetically, like we have been doing, there's not many lines that we're going to do double Justin and Amon-Ra, but both are in good spots. We
Mhm.
saw it work out both games last year. That was just kind of one of the things, but there's not many lines that I don't want to play a expensive tight end today, but this is kind of a line that I think you can work around to do that build.
Fair enough. Can I make you feel uncomfortable by playing Aiden?
Sure.
I think
I'm not nervous at all.
I am. You know, who actually I do this is actually a real question. Who makes you the most nervous on this whole slate to not get
To not play or to invest in?
to not play? And I have a guy that I think makes me uncomfortable, so that's why I'm asking. That I saw.
My most uncomfortable guy that I'm not gonna play is probably Saquon.
Fair enough. I think it's reasonable. Mine is not going to the 20 target a game Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
He scares me.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that call whatsoever. I mean, and it's the same game, actually, but Saquon surprisingly is only 11% owned, so that's not nearly as kind of nerve wracking as I thought it would be. But Neighbors is 14, and again, I don't know why it would be that low, but we can maybe force him in, and we're gonna be overweight to him by just putting one lineup at a 5.
Right.
So
a side stack between instead of you go Neighbors and Saquon because they're in the same game, which is a lot of salary, but you'd have to figure out what you were going to do otherwise. But I don't hate that idea going those two guys. Also, AJ Brown scares me, but one
like I
of
said,
them could play good.
It's pretty spread out, other than Chuba and Bijan being over 20%, which I think I'm almost certain that Tony Pollard will join them as well, being over 20% in the millionaire maker. Everybody else is under 20, and even that includes Justin Jefferson, who's our favorite play. That includes Kyron Williams, who all of a sudden is not even a top 5 owned running back. So those kinds of things is very interesting to me. But yeah, let's do a all right. Trey Tucker.
I just kind of put in
Bowers,
all the
okay.
people that we would expect to put in.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna.
You got 49 left.
Yeah, but I have a guy that makes this okay. 6,300 for my flex. Is there anybody I love? Kelsey's interesting.
I mean, again, I
double tight
I
end.
said that in the afternoon slate.
Come on.
Every tight end, and I don't know how correct this will be for, and if it is, that's crazy to me. But Colby Parkinson's actually the highest projected tight end rostered
Okay.
at 14%. Kelsey and everybody else are 10 and under. So obviously Kelsey and Bowers are 2 and 3, but with both of them being close to or under 10%, putting both of them is very, very interesting. My only thing is if you're going to do, or I would prefer to do that if we were going to fade Juju, but if we didn't want to play Juju instead of Tim Patrick, then I'm fine going that route in a build.
I had an idea.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Bijan in.
Where I want to play Bijan. Today's gonna be another day where I don't play enough Bijan that I want to. Because last week that was the thing where I was like, I like Bijan. I don't even know if I played a main line with him. I'd have to remember. But it all didn't work out well because of Dak
Right.
Prescott. I'm still in mourning.
I hope that everybody feels really gross about this. This is what I think is going. Here you go. This is the line.
So basically, instead of a chalky Trey Tucker, is DJ Turner, who has had a ton of snaps, and then Bijan Robinson instead of a Travis Kelce. That's fine.
I'm actually really surprised by this Drake London ownership. If you wanted to go Drake London instead, just take Bijan out, put Drake London in. It's really, really easy. He is the highest owned receiver at 19.1%. Then you have Justin Jefferson at 16.4. Malik Neighbors is third. He's the one that scares me. I'm telling you, he scares me a lot.
I have a fun question.
Oh no!
And this is in general. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But
okay,
if we're playing 5 lines, how do you expect your tight end ownership to be? Because there's probably a good 4 to 5 that we've considered. We haven't even mentioned a main line with David Njoku yet, who was in our early only. But obviously Kobe Parkinson, I'm fine fading him if he's the most popular tight end.
For sure.
But Kelsey, I like him. Brock Bowers, we love him. Grant Calcaterra is the only really 3,000 guy we're getting to. But David Njoku is 41. We haven't mentioned George Kittle, but he's in a good spot. Like, how do you think this ownership is going to be, or how would you want it to be?
I want Brock Bowers as my main tight
end. 2 or 3?
3.
3, yeah, and then one with Calcaterra, one with Njoku.
Yeah, and I also probably will fade or will side with playing a double tight end line, maybe 1, maybe 2. It just depending on how lines work out. Yeah. Because I do want to possibly get Kelsey. You could always, if in a Andy Dalton stack, you could go Brock and Jatavian instead of Coker. That makes sense. So I think that.
I'm probably only interested in Kelsey as a flex today. So like in addition to X tight end instead of just as a standalone. And it's just because I think it's a fun way to get different off of him because he is one of the more popular tight ends.
Right.
But the way to get different is also playing him with another tight end that we like.
Yeah. But at the same time, like looking at this line, finding the value, I have 2 players in the 3,000s. They're correlated. But it allows me to get Kyron at 8,100. It allows me to go all the way up to Justin Jefferson. It allows me to get to an expensive Brock Bowers at tight end, which for a tight end, 5,800 is expensive. And then also get a last guy in Bijan or Drake London. If I wanted to find a way, I could probably find a way to get up to. I don't have Chuba. I don't have Deontay. They're very chalky. I could find a way to get all the way up to Malik Neighbors because he scares me. I could go all the way up to Saquon maybe. I'd have to find
one of the fun things, and we're trying to think of ways that we're pivoting off the field. We're not really going chalky quarterback this week. And so the last couple of weeks that has not worked out for us. The highest owned quarterback that we have considered playing is Andy Dalton at 6.5%.
That's the highest owned?
That's the highest owned.
Wow. Okay.
So the top 5 are Geno Smith at 18, Jaden Daniels at 15, which we like him, but we haven't made a main with him. Maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is 3rd at 10. Josh Allen, we haven't talked about. Daniel Jones, I mentioned in the puke portion of our first look. Probably not going to go that route.
But if you wanted to, it makes sense because you can go to Neighbors and then you can go to a Philly
But
player.
even with that, he's only 7%, so it's not crazy. I mentioned early in the show, Anthony Richardson, as a standalone play, being only 4% owned at 6,000. I'm completely fine with that. And then we're way down at Aiden O'Connell. He's not even showing ownership.
Beautiful.
And
love that.
who was the last guy that we were talking
Sleep
about?
on him.
And Sam Darnold was the other one. He is 4% owned.
Oh my gosh.
So
Jared
and
Goff.
projections left him too. So
Jared
that's
Goff?
very confusing. Jared Goff is, I mean,
Because we did talk about him.
Did talk about
early.
him. He's 6,500, 2%.
Okay, so we're just playing all the
So
guys.
surprisingly, there's not nearly as much ownership as we thought there'd be with the Minnesota Detroit game.
Right.
Not a single player above 20%.
Well, that's good because looking at ownership for other positions, we're all over the chalk for wide receiver. Justin Jefferson, second. Amon Ross, fourth. Juju, Trey Tucker, Terry, Jordan Whittington.
And then you brought up Malik Neighbors as well. He's third.
Right. At tight end, we're all over the chalk there, except for Kobe Parkinson, which I don't believe will have 15%. But it's Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers, Calcaterra, Joku. Kittle isn't a guy that we talked about, but we are expecting KC to win that game. Maybe he gets held in check. That's the plan, at least.
Yeah. And even running back, Chuba, Bijan, Tony Pollard, Kyron, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson.
All guys that we have talked about. So getting off of the chalk at quarterback is going to save our lines for the ownership game. And it's also on Maine, it's 10. There's 10 games, so 20 different 20 different teams going.
And just for reference, because last week we were interested, or it was interesting because we didn't nail the defense.
Right.
And the most popular one was Tampa Bay against New Orleans. And because we were doing a puke stack, we ended up not getting that. And they gave up 27 points, but they still were they
scored.
Yeah, they were a very good defense.
Yeah.
So the most popular defense today, and again, it's kind of a similar boat to us, but we're not.
Well,
we just feel a little better about the other. Is the Giants is the highest owned defense at 13.7%, and then it is Cincinnati, who've been awful defensively, but it is a low total at 12%. Then Cleveland's at 3%, which is the one that we were kind of targeting for the most part. But I mean, even the defenses up top today, I don't trust Philly against the Giants on the road. Buffalo has decent matchup against Mason Rudolph, but again, there's a lack of value that it's hard to get up to there at 35, especially because they haven't really been scoring well fantasy wise. Washington at 34, I'm not getting to that. Yeah, there's not a dominant defense on the main slate against a bad situation that we're just going to consider like, hey, you might want to get a line or two of this, really good defense.
Yeah, for sure. Dustin, let us know what happened with the Jags in the red zone. I saw that earlier. I thought you might give us an update. I guess maybe
they turned it over.
Either a turn did it? Is it?
They got stuffed on 4th and 1.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Cam gives me quick updates. But yeah, so I think that this makes sense if you wanted to go with Aiden O'Connell. I actually had one more question before we do go. And if y'all have any questions, please throw them in there. Any start sit questions, anything about DFS, any of that stuff. Demario Douglas selling the world. Bro, why is this man not returning due to illness after he's already played half the game?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? I completely agree, Gail. Craziness. Didn't let Cam Little get me kicker points. Sorry, man. Did want to ask you, though, if you had to project your quarterback ownership, how many lines do you think you're playing, and what would your quarterback ownership be?
Well, I mean, we don't have to get that overweight to anybody today because all the guys that we have are less than 7% owned, 8%, even if you're going to talk about inflation. So maybe 2 Andys, maybe 1 Jaden. Haven't built one, but because I've said it a couple times and it does make sense. Anthony Richardson just by himself without a stack. I want to see things with that.
Okay.
And then maybe 2 Andy Dalton, not Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold.
Okay.
But I also didn't mention Aiden O'Connell. So like we have about 5, 6, 7 situations we're going to have to narrow down in this final hour as we approach kick or lock. But that's kind of how I said no lineup with more than 2 of the same quarterback. But then the ones that are candidates for that are Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold.
Okay. I think I am right there with you. I'm probably not going to get to Anthony Richardson. I think that's
and if we don't, it is what it is. He's
Jordan Love wasn't mentioned, a guy that we do like. He's got a difficult bring back situation with Houston because they are so expensive, but Jordan Love
he's
has
only
gone for
and
4
he's only
touchdowns last week.
2.5%
So,
owned, so pretty solid
golly,
tournament
there's
play.
no way. How is everybody we like?
Because everybody's being just as uncomfortable as us. But you look at the Green Bay and Houston game, at the receiver, the highest owned guy is 8.7% owned, and that's Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
The Packer receiver that is the highest owned is Jaden Reed at 6.8. So
Okay.
basically, nobody's getting to the Packers. So if you truly want a tournament line, doing a double with Green Bay, I think, is a fun way to go.
Well, it looks like we're just going to be playing tournament lines all day.
I don't know
Cool with
why
that.
Josh Jacobs is the most popular guy because Houston's actually decent against running backs. I would have thought it would have been Joe Mixon, but he's still at only 8.7.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm still baffled that Geno Smith is the highest owned quarterback on the slate. I get it, but I don't get it. Why would that game? Why are we expecting that game to go?
But the thing is, like,
for
he's the most
55?
popular owned, but there's not a single receiver that's above 10%.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you trying to do with Geno?
Colby Barkin. Oh no, he didn't even. Sorry,
No,
he didn't play
not
there.
anymore.
No, shoot. No, I don't know. I really
Noah
don't know.
Fant's 5, DK's 9, JSN is 7, Tyler Lockett's 6.
Yeah, there's
Walker obviously is going to be 18%, but that's not somebody you're typically gonna. Even though he had eight catches in back-to-back games, essentially.
So what was the total on the ownership for? You just named those guys. What was the total for all the skill players, not running backs?
The total combined?
Yeah.
Um,
It should be at least double Geno Smith, and it doesn't sound like it.
No, it doesn't. It's between the big three of the receivers, between Jason, Lockett, and Metcalf. That would be a fancy 22%.
So you're telling me that most people are gonna single stack this game?
I guess so.
That is insanity to me, because when you think about it, you would need 36% for them to be double
I just
stacking.
think they're looking at the number because it's flipped to being the highest total. They're projected to lose,
No way.
play from behind. He hasn't been terrible,
I
even
think-
though he's been okay, like from a quarterback perspective. But yeah,
I think Geno's fine. I think if he gets his 17 points, he's solid. But
think
that
it's
is
got
not. Yeah, that's absolutely. But yeah, do we have any questions? Nope, no questions. Dustin did say, to be fair to Douglas, this Patriots team makes me sick too. Shout out to our Patriots buddies, the fans of the team. Yeah, that team sucks.
we tried to tell you.
But yeah, no, and don't play Ramondre.
Mate's been pretty solid though. His first,
Yeah.
1.75 starts. Obviously, he had 3 touchdown game in his debut last week. Did
2
have 2
picks.
picks, but is what it is. You're
Yeah.
a rookie and you're going against Houston. And then today, even though they've had 25 unanswered, he's unblemished, 19 of 29 for 195 and a score. Serviceable as a second start,
For sure.
especially outside the.
And he scored again, just so you know.
Oh, he just scored. Yeah.
Thanks to KJ Osborne.
All right, yeah,
Well-
he came in for Mr.
Golly,
Douglas.
man. Yeah. Sorry, Gail. I'm sure that is hurting your lines, man. I completely get it.
Hunter Henry though having a very strong game, 8 for 92.
Okay. Hell yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tank Bigsby approaching 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
So everybody's gonna hate Travis Etienne when he comes back, and it makes me sad because I have him on my bench.
Well, I luckily Taylor's not going to hate me. I did play Tank Bigsby as her starting running back.
That's good.
So let me stop the screen share. Let me get to this. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
We can do prize picks, underdog questions if y'all have those.
Just be aware, real quick, and this is a non-football, but it matters if you like making money. Anthony Edwards has a free square starting on Tuesday. NBA season kicks off. Minnesota is playing the I don't even care enough at the moment. Lakers. Okay, so it's up to $25. So if you're not in love with basketball and you don't want to force an unknown in a debut game for a 2-game slate, stack it with a bunch of plays today and tomorrow in football. So
Taylor did, of course, comments. Thanks, Dustin. We appreciate you. The Gale, no lineups, just parlays. Well, that's even worse because you normally I feel like you're gonna make more money in that. So yeah, I'm sorry, man. He did play well in the first half, but to have an illness halftime is just an insane thing
crazy
to happen. But yeah, Anthony Edwards, free square, go get it. And then also, of course, if you have
make sure
any other lines,
if there's any underdog like boosts or anything today.
Okay.
Before we go, Load, please. It is there's a 31% profit boost for your in-game entry today in NFL. So if you do live betting, I know Bailey, one of our friends, I don't know if he's joined the stream, but he likes doing in-game props. They have a
Yes.
31% boost, so that's a pretty solid boost if you have a 2 or 3 pick.
Yeah, Gail, I'm happy that May got over 200 yards. Also, he's looked good, like Cam said. And are you doing a single game parlay basically on this one, or are you trying to do a bunch of different ones?
He was up and at him early, is all I know.
Yeah.
He did a parlay before
He's
8:30
probably. I'm sure he was here with us early. He's always in the chat. We really appreciate him. He hangs out with us in Discord also. So if you're not in there, get in there.
Yeah, we're gonna be posting our final lines, whether that's main, whether that's prize picks underdog, if we see any last minute standouts. But basically, we've already told you guys the numbers that we're targeting. We're mixing matching and 3, 4, 5 or even picks with those. But if there's something that stands out, then we'll let y'all know. And then early only, keep a lookout for that. But afternoon, we'll probably send around 2:30. If we play the showdown, we'll let you know. But prime time game starting at 7:15. Yeah, all that good stuff. We can't appreciate y'all enough for hanging out with us, and we will see you guys next time.
Yeah, no more questions. We appreciate y'all, and get off of here and go make lines.
Yeah.